I think that being in the business world, I have both tremendous optimism for the moment we are in as well as tremendous concern. There has been an almost obsessive focus and conversation about sustainability and corporate responsibility recently. And while it's wonderful to have that attention, it is equally challenging to ensure that we seize that opportunity to generate the kind of deep and significant change that is needed to address the challenges that our society faces. It's really interesting to hear, and it seems almost silly, but when I hear the words that business should have a moral purpose, I think, well, of course, and yet I'm not quite sure that that discussion is happening inside quite enough boardrooms at companies.
And I was specifically asked to focus on what works in managing large-scale change in companies, and what are some common mistakes that creates failures in those change agendas, and what are some of the challenges. So that's where my specific comments are going to be focused. I'm really incredibly personally passionate about this topic. And the reason I'm passionate is when change isn't done well, many stakeholders lose. Many stakeholders suffer. Those may be employees, they may be communities. And so learning how to really manage large-scale change is a pretty important topic, and it's one that I care a lot about. I can't help but reflect on the early 90s. In one of the companies I was involved with, IBM, there were IBM sites across small towns, small to medium-sized towns, largely across the East Coast, but around the world. And those towns went through incredible pain and suffering as IBM had not adapted well to a changing world, and as IBM was struggling to figure out how to change fast enough to keep up with the world. Those kind of experiences have had a big impact on me and has driven a lot of that passion. The second reason I'm really passionate about getting change right is, in my opinion, the world is becoming much more densely interconnected, much more interdependent, which by definition means that the pace of change is increasing. Because as any one component in that dense interconnectedness changes, it creates ripple effects throughout the causal networks. And as the pace of change increases, a lot of those pathways create nonlinear or highly volatile events. And so there can be a lot of disruption. And in my opinion, those that learn how to manage change well will survive and thrive, and those that don't will die. So my point of view is, as a practitioner of change, is that the world is at a crossroads, and I've tagged it perhaps an interconnectedness tipping point. We're gaining insights into complex systems, but the complexity is growing increasingly difficult to manage. Theory, methods, and tools for seeing relevant systems are lacking. The schools are not building curriculums that build this kind of competency, and the business world needs them desperately.
And just to set up my comment, back in 1995 is when we really started thinking about and acting about what is our role as a corporation in the world, and what is our impact in all the 160 countries in which we do business. And for about the next 10 years, and it was mentioned earlier, we were really laying the foundation for what we do in the future. And it did take a long time to understand, what does this word sustainability mean? And several people in this room, Joe Lauer, Peter Senge, John Elkington, they helped us think about that. So during that time, we were taking action, but we were still trying to think strategically, what does this mean? In the year 2006, 2007, we fundamentally underwent and are undergoing what we're calling a radical shift in how we look at business and how we change the game. And that is certainly at a strategic level, at a structural level, how we run our business as a process, but also at the people level and culturally. What kind of shifts does this require? And culture is probably the biggest piece. But from the perspective of corporate responsibility, we are also realigning those resources against our business. We're moving from a product-based organization to a consumer-based organization. If you take that to an external level, I would take it one step up from the corporation and to the industry. And if you think about an industry of like-minded corporations, we're all vying for the best talent, the best minds in the business. We're vying for the same market share. But what if we came together in the spirit of cooperative competition to start solving for the greatest stressor within our industry? It's not something that defines you as a brand, but we're all going to have to deal with water. We're all going to have to deal with energy. And if we collectively come together, we will get to a solution much, much quicker than if we're trying to do that on our own. So that would be, again, from an external view, what can we do differently in the future?